Secretary Wolf, thank you for your service. Why, in your opinion, do so many, not all, but so many of my Democratic colleagues believe in open borders?
Well, that's a good question. I think it's a couple of different fronts. One, it would be they don't believe in immigration law. They don't like enforcement. They don't like removing of individuals. And they believe that there are some that believe that anyone and everyone should be able to come to the U.S., whether they apply for protections under U.S. law or not. And then there's some probably that would like to see more voters in the U.S. as well.
Senator John Kennedy looked straight at a witness and asked a blunt question. Do many Democrats believe in open borders? Not immigration reform, not asylum policy. And just like that, the temperature in the room jumped. Because that question wasn't really about policy. It was about framing the entire immigration debate in one phrase.
Ms. Vaughn, some of my colleagues, for whom I have great respect, believe that the 10th Amendment allows local governments to ignore federal immigration law and implement sanctuary policy. The Supreme Court has ruled that racial quotas represent a pernicious form of racial discrimination. Can local governments ignore that ruling under the 10th Amendment?
Well, the 10th Amendment is about...
Just answer my question, please, ma'am.
The 10th Amendment is about commandeering, and so it's not really appropriate to this because...
Is the answer yes or no, ma'am?
Could you ask me again? Because I don't understand the relevance to... I'm sorry, I don't... Because ICE is not asking them
Secretary Wolf, you heard my question. Under the guise of the 10th Amendment, can local governments ignore a Supreme Court ruling?
I don't believe they can.
Okay. Women have the right to vote in America by statute
Yes.
and by constitutional interpretation. Under the guise of the 10th Amendment, can local governments just ignore that and prohibit women from voting?
No.
Okay. Mr. Duke, you worked for President Biden and Vice President Harris, didn't you?
Yes.
And I listened carefully to your testimony today. You offered the opinion that the One Big Beautiful Bill is terrible in part because it will cause deficits. Is that right?
Yes.
Isn't it a fact that the profligacy of President Biden caused 9% inflation in America?
No.
Okay. Isn't it a fact that if President Biden had discovered life on Mars when he was president, he would have immediately sent it money?
I don't believe so.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Well, I appreciate your newly found fiscal conservatism. Mr. Beer, you seem to be a very smart guy, and you seem to be a nice enough guy.
Thank you, Senator. You seem smart as well.
Jack.
Don't.
That was the chairman, not me.
Don't you think your hyperbolic statements undermine your credibility?
What hyperbolic statement did I make?
On February the 11th, 2026, you posted on Bluesky, quote, my words, or your words, not mine. The Democrats' video telling service members to ignore illegal orders didn't go far enough. They should have also urged them to refuse unethical orders, whether illegal or not. There are many things deemed legal that are still obviously unethical, and everyone should hold themselves to this higher law, end quote. Did I read that correctly?
I believe you did. Do you disagree with it? You think people should do unethical things in their capacity?
On December the 31st of 2025, you posted in front of God.
But wait. Do you disagree with what I said?
Let me finish my question.
I'm sorry.
Answered, sir.
Sure.
in front of God and country. You said, quote, they, referring to Republicans, think they can troll their way into us accepting ethnic cleansing, end quote. Your words, not mine. Did I read that correctly?
That was in regard to a Department of Homeland Security post about advocating 100 million deportations. That is what DHS has tweeted from their own account. 100 million deportations would be ethnic cleansing. You would be removing 1/3 of the country. So yes, there are people within the Department of Homeland Security.
And you don't think this is hyperbolic? Give me 30 more seconds.
I think advocating 100 million deportations is
I'm having fun here,
ethnic
Mr. Chairman.
cleansing.
On February 5th, you quoted you said the following on Bluesky.
Your time's up.
These are all good, but there's no enforcement mechanism. I'm sorry. Let me try a better one. On March 2nd, you said, quote, if you rule against Trump's population purge agenda, no hyperbole there, the nativists will name you, threaten you, and come after you. These judges are much braver than the ICE agents who hide behind masks while violating the Constitution.
They are much braver. They put their names on their rulings and they stand behind their constitutional rulings. When I talk about population purge, I'm talking about the fact that they're trying to deport U.S.-born citizens, people born here. They are trying to deport them as well. So it's not a mass deportation agenda. It is also an agenda intended to reduce the population of the United States, including U.S.-born people.
Thank you.
These are not hyperbolic statements. I appreciate you reading my account. I appreciate
Here's
your
the good
research.
news.
What planet did you just, wait a minute, Mr. Chairman, what planet did you just parachute in from?
No. Hey, guys.
You trigger my gag reflex, Mr. Beaver.
So we got a process here, and it's good to know you don't have an agenda.
The witness answered carefully, saying some Democrats oppose enforcement, some oppose deportations, and somewhat broader entry to the U.S. But then the senator pivoted. And this is where the exchange became constitutional. He invoked the 10th Amendment. His argument was simple. If local governments claim the 10th Amendment lets them ignore federal immigration enforcement through sanctuary policies, does that mean they could ignore any federal law or Supreme Court ruling? He pressed the witness into a yes or no corner. Could a city ignore the Supreme Court? Could it ignore voting rights? Could it ban women from voting and claim local authority? The witnesses said no. That's technically correct. Under Article 6 of the Constitution, the Supremacy Clause makes federal law the supreme law of the land. States and cities cannot override Supreme Court rulings. But the senator's comparison also glosses over an important distinction. Sanctuary policies generally rely on the anti-commandeering doctrine, which comes from the 10th Amendment. That doctrine says the federal government cannot force states or cities to enforce federal law. So cities can't nullify immigration law. But they also cannot be forced to use local police or budgets to carry it out. Those are two very different constitutional ideas. The hearing then took another sharp turn. The senator began reading the witnesses' social media posts out loud. One quote accused Republicans of pushing ethnic cleansing. Another described Trump-era immigration policy as a population purge. Now the focus shifted from constitutional law to credibility. The senator's argument was clear. If you use language that extreme, you undermine your own analysis. But the witness didn't back down. He defended the language by pointing to proposals for extremely large deportation numbers and argued that such policies would inevitably affect U.S.-born citizens and mixed-status families. That's where the hearing crossed into the most volatile terrain in American politics, rhetoric versus policy. Because immigration debates today are rarely about statutes alone. They're about narratives. One side frames enforcement as restoring the rule of law. The other frames large-scale deportation as morally and socially destructive. And both sides use language designed to move public opinion. But there was one moment that quietly revealed the deeper issue. When the senator asked whether local governments could ignore Supreme Court rulings, the witnesses quickly agreed they could not. That's the constitutional baseline. Federal immigration law comes from Congress under Article 1. Enforcement falls to the executive branch under Article 2. And interpretation ultimately lands with the Supreme Court under Article 3. The real fight isn't about whether those powers exist. It's about how aggressively they're used. How much enforcement discretion the executive branch has. How much cooperation states must provide. And how far rhetoric can go before it stops being analysis and becomes political theater. Because hearings like this aren't just about answering questions. They're about shaping the story voters hear afterward. And in Washington, the most powerful weapon in a hearing room isn't always the Constitution.